Yeah.
All right. Well, so how was everybody else's weekend?
Good. Pretty calm. Went out to my steak dinner, my birthday steak dinner on Saturday.
Yeah, was it nice? Did you like it?
It was lovely. Great. I love that. Yeah, that place is great.
Cool.
And we just hung around with the dogs and watched movies and TV shows, kind of just chilled.
Sounds relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will have you and Roger know that yesterday I ordered my caprese sandwich and a large godmother from Bay Cities, and I ate them both.
Wait,
Well,
what's a large godmother?
That's what I had.
Tom got the small one, so I got the large one. So I ate 2 large submarine sandwiches yesterday.
I ate Chinese leftovers.
It was great.
We all eat an Italian submarine.
I mean, do any of you, I know I've asked Tom this, but I don't know about you and Sarah and Justin, but do you have any kind of thing where you just won't eat leftovers? Like, it's not a, like,
I'll eat leftovers. Always. I mean, unless for some reason they've turned. But like day after leftovers, yeah,
not spoiled, but something like you cook maybe the night before or maybe 2 nights before and you're eating.
Oh yeah, that's ideal actually, because then I don't have to cook 3 days around.
I will say that my wife Ashley is more finicky about leftovers. She's more finicky about food going bad than I am. I've yet to see the day when we've gone too bad, especially like prepared leftovers that are just sitting in the fridge. Like, whatever, I'll eat that.
Oh yeah,
it's probably just fermented and good for my digestion.
Exactly. Yeah. If I don't know,
it's like kimchi.
It's just a big bowl of what is it?
Bacillus.
No. Vegemite. Just a giant bowl of Vegemite.
Yeah, I mean, there have even been times where it's like, oh, that chicken tikka masala sat out all night, but it's fine.
You know what? My rule of thumb is
I don't really get sick, so I don't know.
My rule of thumb is if it's not longer than 3 days and I nuke it hot enough, generally it would be safe to eat.
Yeah.
Like I nuke it for 5 minutes, everything in it that could kill me should be dead. And then I'll eat. And if it's something like chicken tikka masala, the curry will cover up whatever else.
I worry about extremophiles.
Which is?
Like the bacteria that live in volcanic vents at high temperatures.
But don't go camping near volcanic vents.
Yeah,
but
just
they might
stay out of the
have
vents.
shown up in my leftovers somehow.
Well, they might have shown up before they were leftovers and you're freshly prepared.
But so here's my question. If they show up in your leftovers, but there is no bad reaction, maybe you become more of a superhuman after ingesting.
Maybe
Maybe
we'll start the show now.
Maybe we will.
Maybe we won't. No, we will. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Go.
We go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, July 2nd, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And of course, joining us, a fan of 8-bit chip tunes himself, Roger Chang, our producer.
Yes, I am a fan of chips, especially chocolate chips.
8-bit chocolate chip tunes. Good stuff. We're going to talk a little bit today about a study out on automation and its effect on the workforce, but let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Tesla confirmed it was able to manufacture 5,031 Model 3s in 7 days to meet a milestone it had hoped to achieve in December. Tesla created a new production line in a tent to help meet that goal. The company now hopes to produce 6,000 Model 3s a week by the end of August.
Some people say Elon Musk is a snake oil salesman. I'm sure the tent is not helping. NASA plans to conduct a series of public tests of quieter supersonic technology near Galveston, Texas in November. An FA-18 Hornet will perform dive maneuvers, and at least 500 local volunteers will gauge the thumps it makes to say how acceptable the noise level is. This will help the X-59 supersonic jet team calibrate the tech for its test flights, which are expected in 2021. All right, let's talk a little bit more about some bad news for HTC, Justin.
Oh, yeah. HTC announced it will lay off 1,500 employees from its Taiwanese manufacturing division. That's about 22% of the company. The company will reorganize for efficiency in an attempt to be profitable. HTC laid off employees and reorganized earlier this year as well. It's the reorg so nice, they did it twice.
I don't know about nice. They certainly did it twice. And it has a lot of people worried because HTC, as you remember, sold off a large part of its mobile design team to Google, mostly the team that was responsible for the Pixel phones, which made sense. But they continue to make phones that don't sell. And they continue to not acknowledge that the thing dragging down their profit margin is the phones, but they say they're going to continue to make the phones. Now, far be it from me to tell HTC, you'll never make a profitable phone, because they make some really great phones. There's no reason they shouldn't sell better. Maybe they'll get it right this time. But the conventional wisdom from the outside, and believe me, I know, backseat driver, it's always easier from the outside, is why don't you focus on the Vive? You've got Oculus out there with a wireless headset that you could drive out of the market because yours is better, but you'll only sell yours in China. You should be focusing on that.
Well, but maybe that's what this is an effort to do, right? If you've got a bunch of people working on phones, they're not selling well, you have to lay people off eventually. HTC certainly isn't the first company to experience this. If they want to double down on the whole VR future, that's a crapshoot as well, depending on who you ask, then they would have to do this. Doesn't mean they won't ramp up later.
It does sound like they're not getting rid of the idea of making the phones.
No. They're not, because this is the poison pill that they are addicted to eating. Right now, phones are so commoditized in general, specifically on the Android side, that you are looking at features that are in the top of the line phones are on very affordable, very good phones within a year, right? And HTC is in exactly that perspective.
I mean, HTC wants, if it were me, again, I don't know, I'm doing a podcast, but if it were me, I would be making mid-tier phones and pushing them in Africa and India, which HTC does not seem to be doing much, or if they are trying, they're not making much headway in those markets.
Well, let's move on to some bad news for photographers. Depends on where you post your photos. Photo sharing site 500px, that's 500px, has removed the option for photographers to share photos under the Creative Commons license and has closed its stock photo platform called 500px Marketplace. Visual China Group bought the company back in February, is replacing the marketplace with Visual China Group and Getty Image partnerships. Royalty rates for photographers won't change, while the million or so Creative Commons license images have been removed from download and search. 500px says it may integrate Creative Commons into the platform in the future, but that was sort of a vague note from them. 500px gave no warning of the removal, but archive.org was able to retrieve 3 terabytes of photos thanks to volunteers. I saw a lot of mumbling and grumbling about this over the weekend because it wasn't so much that, okay, a company bought us and now we're changing our strategy. It was that so many photographers had no heads up. It was basically like, if you're Creative Commons and this is something that's working for you, this will all be removed, figure out another option, which is funny because 500px at one time was this Flickr alternative, kind of worked the same way, had a lot of very high quality photos and photographers who were willing to be social with their collections and share them under a variety of different licenses. And it has changed.
Well, I have to wonder whether or not, where is the new market for something like this? Because like you said, Flickr was beloved amongst photographers, and then it never really found its way in a post-Instagram kind of world. I don't even know where, if you really wanted to get into photography, maybe you were starting out and you just wanted to get exposure and have your images used places. Like, where do you go these days? Like, where do you post these things?
I mean, 500px is still there. I think it's easy to misinterpret this story in a lot of ways. First of all, Visual China Group bought the company and said, hey, you know what? We have our own marketplace. We'd like to put that in 500 pics, at least in China. So let's start there. Oh, if we do that, it doesn't really make sense to operate the old marketplace outside of China. Let's license with Getty Images. That'll make us more money. It'll also be better for the photographers because then when they license through 500 pics, they get licensed through Getty Images. They're liable to make more money because they might get sold off site of 500 pics through Getty Images as well. This is going to be great for everyone. Oh, wait, Getty Images doesn't really integrate with Creative Commons. How many people are using the Creative Commons function? Not that many. That's a small percentage. We're not familiar with Creative Commons culture, so let's get rid of it. As a business decision and an engineering decision, it makes perfect sense. Hold on, we didn't give anyone any notice, and now they're very upset that these images that were Creative Commons licensed, particularly to be able to be preserved and shared easily, are suddenly disappearing without any kind of notice. No wonder they're getting angry. Like, I don't think 500 pics meant to do something bad, but they did something very badly. They should not have rolled it out that way.
This is an engineering solution that was not communicated to consumers in an effective way. This was just
engineering and business both. Like, I mean, there's no reason not to keep Creative Commons unless you're like, oh, it just isn't worth the man hours to put on it, which is why they're saying we're not ruling out adding it later if we see there's demand for it.
Yeah. But your question remains, Justin, what would be the best alternative for any photographer who's like, well, you know, the Creative Commons license is really important to me. And, you know, that's where I share, or you know, someone like me might get photos that way. I don't know. I'd love to know what the new cool thing is. Yeah. I know it's not Flickr.
eBarch suggests SmugMug in the chat room. But
yeah, that's true.
Send us your favorites, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. All right, security researchers from Ruhr Universität Bochum and New York University Abu Dhabi have revealed a vulnerability in LTE they call Alter. Get it? LTE is capitalized in the word alter.
Yeah, good one.
So this is a vulnerability, and it's a serious one if you're in the surveillance industry, if you're in really, sensitive data in the business of trafficking in sensitive data, but it's not going to be one that affects most of you. An attacker in proximity of the target. So first of all, they have to be nearby, and they have to have around $4,000 worth of sniffing equipment. So this isn't going to be just anybody off the street. Could sniff out your data, and first of all, use the amount of time data requests take and the amount of data that's trafficked to kind of identify what sites are being visited despite encryption. It's something called fingerprinting. So they can get enough data to do some fingerprinting and say, oh, I think I know where they're going. Then the attackers could also direct traffic to malicious DNS servers. There's a lack of integrity checks in LTE's lower layers that can allow them to spoof DNS servers and get your traffic to visit their DNS server, which could serve malicious pages. The worst thing about it is it's baked into LTE. There's really no way to patch it. So you kind of have to wait for 5G to come along for this to be gone. In the meantime, if you are somebody who says, well, wait, somebody with $4,000 of sniffing equipment nearby me is an actual real risk, then you're going to want to make sure that you're only visiting sites using HTTP strict transport security or DNS security extensions. That limits the amount of sites you can go to, of course.
So, I mean, I definitely would be curious to see, this seems like the kind of thing that at DEF CON would be something that was talked about, but it seems like this is not this isn't quite a retail problem for
exactly. That's a really good way of putting it. It's something to know about, something to be aware about, especially if you end up in a position where you're like, oh, wait a minute, this could be a problem. But the vast majority of people listening to this show are not going to have to worry about it. So important to know. Not important for most of you to worry about.
Dell, which owns 80% of VMware, says it will buy back the VMware tracking stock it issued in 2016 in order to simplify its ownership structure. Dell will offer $109 per share or 1.3665 shares of Class C Dell common stock. Dell says it will list the Class C shares back on the New York Stock Exchange following the completion of the buyback, making Dell a public company again.
Yeah. So if you didn't quite follow that, a tracking stock is something that you put out when you don't want to put out stock for the entire company. But let's say, well, in VMware's case, you have a company that used to be public and you kind of want it to keep trading. So it's called a tracking stock because of that. And so what Dell's doing is saying that makes it complex to make Dell public again. So we need to buy back all of that stock, give those people Class C stock in Dell, which is private right now. Then we can take Dell public. So the upshot is Dell's going back to the stock exchange, sounds like.
Yeah, man, dude, what a circuitous route for Dell over the past 15 years, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought it was the idea of public pressure on Dell is what was keeping it from succeeding, but it sounds like that was only a temporary solution in their mind. Is we just needed to get out of the public eye for a while so we could fix stuff. Now we fix stuff, we can go back and be public again.
Moving on to bike shares. Lyft acquired Motivate, which is the bike sharing company that operates City Bike in New York City. If you've been to New York City, you know that they're very prolific there. Ford's Go Bike program in San Francisco. Lyft says Motivate has about 80% of bike share trips in the U.S. It's also operating networks in Chicago, Boston, D.C., Portland, Columbus, Ohio, Minneapolis. Now, Lyft competitor Uber bought e-bike startup Jump earlier this year. So a bit of a trend and Uber has applied for a permit to operate a network of electric scooters in San Francisco. Lyft has applied for a permit in San Francisco there as well. So, all right. We talked a lot about electric scooters on Friday's show in our roundtable show with Shannon Morris and Trisha Hirschberger, but I think this is really smart. I mean, I had not realized that Motivate, the parent company of City Bikes, which I've used in New York City, and it is lovely, at least if the weather's right. I did not realize that their network extended to so many other cities.
This is a fundamental path in the wood, one way or another kind of decision. Because Motivate, if you are not familiar, the difference is that for either the Ford Go bikes or the City Bikes in New York, you have these paddocks that are permitted and they are out on street corners. They have done a great job of figuring out where the big traffic points are. You get it out of one paddock, you plug it into the paddock near where you want to go, and that's that process. The far more anarchistic and at times legally straining model is what we have seen with, let's say, Bird and Lime and Jump, which Uber bought, where you just find a bike somewhere, you turn on your app, you see that it's around your neighborhood, you walk, you get it, and then you just leave it wherever you want with very, very few restrictions. You are leaving it in public places, not a specific government approved paddock. So it's interesting to see Lyft going this way, getting into this game where they already have a tremendous foothold, while I kind of wonder with how easy some of this the other business model is, whether or not that's going to be the dinosaur. Is Motivate where the puck is, and Lime and Bird and Jump where the puck is going?
Well, and Lyft wants to do both, and Uber wants to do both. So it kind of doesn't matter. I think what Uber and Lyft want are, when you get out of the car, we're partnering with public transit agencies to tell you, hey, you can buy a transit pass through us in certain areas. Or we want to be able to tell you, oh, we know you still have a little ways to go to get to the place you wanted to. Here, grab this scooter/bike and it will get you there. They just want to cover every step on your path from one place to another.
Yeah, if you use public transportation, I think Shannon was talking about, being near a BART station last Friday. It's like the idea of having a place where you get a scooter or a bike or wherever in a designated location where you know they're going to be. That doesn't have to go the way of the dodo just because we have the Birds and the Limes and, that sort of riddling of scooters all over the place in other senses. I think there's room for both. I don't totally know how it shakes out, but I do know that between Lyft and Uber getting market share in this sense, especially because you can piggyback it onto, I took a Lyft and then I took a Lyft-owned bike to get to my final destination, that last mile or whatever. Makes a lot of sense.
The only thing I would say, just on the way out, is that I do think that there is a difference when you are working with the city in overhead. That is the appealing business side of the more anarchistic, you're just finding the bike or the scooter model. I'll be curious to see which one wins out or does better. Or if they both work, then great.
I will say, just in closing, there's a bird scooter right outside my apartment building. It's been on the street and is making weird beeping noises and has been doing it for 3 days, and no one's used it. And I don't know when it's ever going to go away, and it's very annoying. So,
Hey, by the way, that's big money if you bring it into your house and charge it.
I don't. Is that what I'm supposed to do? I just want it to stop beeping.
Yeah, if you want to make that green.
I
Might
do.
make it stop beeping too. Who knows? Might be a win-win. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. Oh, economists. They worry us. They talk to us. They try to educate us about automation. And automation is something that I have talked about in the sense of most likely we see automation eliminate some jobs while other jobs get created. And there is an economic tradition for that kind of thinking, which is touched upon in what I think is one of the best papers that I have read about this yet, The Rise of the Robot Reserve Army, Automation and the Future of Economic Development, Work and Wages in Developing Countries by Lucas Schlogel and Andy Sumner of King's College, London. Their paper is put out through the Center for Global Development about the effects of automation, not just on economic development and wages, but particularly in developing countries. What I like about it is they say, yes, generally speaking, developed countries that have service economies are less likely to be affected by automation because, first of all, automation doesn't affect service jobs as much. And second, we see examples where there are pressures to keep service employees employed, and it's easier to shift them into other things. Where it will be a problem is in what are considered more manual labor, more unskilled labor, and developing countries have much larger percentages of the population engaged in that. And that is where we should be paying attention about how to aid the transition. Now, the paper says too much attention is being focused on determining the feasibility of automation to decide which jobs are going to be replaced, which automation is going to work. They're like, we should worry about that, but we're spending all our time on that. Just because something can be automated doesn't mean it will be. There are costs, there are legalities, there are cultural beliefs about, I don't want to talk to a robot, stuff like that. They all play a part, and not enough is being done to study this. Where will the effects actually happen? For example, in the paper, they mentioned that in Indonesia's toll booth operator, PT Jasa Marga, eliminated 20,000 toll booth jobs with automation, but not one person has been laid off from that company yet. Now, there are lots of reasons why that might be, and they go through them in this paper. But the point being, just because jobs get eliminated doesn't mean the people get laid off, certainly not right away. There's an example of it. Now, what they say is that most of the disruption is going to come in these countries where the labor market is filled with unskilled jobs in factories and agriculture. And they say, rather than causing mass unemployment, AI and robots are more likely to lead to stagnant wages and deindustrialization. So not mass firings and mass layoffs, but people just getting stuck in jobs that don't grow or don't make them enough money. They say as agricultural and manufacturing jobs are automated, workers will continue to flood the service sector, driving down wages. And in these countries, the service sector can absorb them like they can in some developed countries. So the current debate focuses too much on technological capabilities and not enough on the economic, political, legal, and social factors that will profoundly shape the way automation affects employment. What do you guys think of this? The TLDR being, we need to be focusing on how will automation affect jobs and what can we do in advance of that?
Well, this all makes a lot of sense. I do believe that we are at a point now, and we were just talking about this on the Weird Things podcast earlier today, that automation is the greatest looming kind of a threat here. I do think that this makes a lot of sense to say that it is going to be in developing countries, I guess, let's not say third world, that this will hit harder. Now, the question is, in these top-down economies, or many of them are restrictive, will it be allowed to spread as fast? Like, will the governments decide that this is what is best for everybody? I don't know. I mean, I think that this is a worst-case scenario, but I don't know how realistic it is.
Well, if you think about, Tom, you mentioned the cultural aspects of it. People don't like talking to robots. Think of Amazon's Amazon Go. What's the store where they don't have any cashiers anymore up in Seattle? That's a great example of something where it's like, okay, well, it's a little weird. It might be kind of weird if I went in there the first time, but if it makes sense for the company's bottom line, the cultural stuff, we'll just all have to get used to it, right? Because companies want to, make as much money as possible and be more efficient. And if this is the way that they can do it, they will. And that applies to any country, anywhere, any company in any country, anywhere. That said, we do a lot of the stuff like, well, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to get laid off. It just means that humans have the opportunity to have even better jobs, and we'll expand on these more sort of menial tasks that if the robots take over, it frees us all up to do other things. However, yes, in an economist sense, if that means that you might be in a position, even more so, that isn't growing, where your wages aren't growing, and there are enough people in that position to make a difference, that is an issue. It doesn't mean, even if you don't lose your job, it means if there's no opportunity to grow, that's not a good thing, especially in a lot of these companies, which are supposedly forward thinking and, disrupting and changing the world.
Yeah. The thing to keep in mind is what this paper is saying is not, we know what the nightmare scenario is. What they're saying is we don't know what the scenario is. What we know is that the early indications are that automation disrupts service-based economies that are usually developed countries less, and that those seem more resilient. What we don't know is what these developing countries are going to do, where it looks like what happens is that the automation is done in the developing countries, takes away the demand for the industries that have been employing people in the developing countries, takes away their advantage of cheap labor because the automation is cheaper, and leads to deindustrialization. And that's what you need to anticipate. So it's not just about, the policy of the country is going to affect it. It's what happens on a worldwide scale as well. And they recommend that countries look at not creating manufacturing clusters to defend themselves against this, but long-term automation resistant sectors and building up social, educational, healthcare, tourism, things that are going to be resistant to automation in the future is what we should be studying and advising countries to look at if they want to prevent this sort of thing from happening.
So this is all about where we go forward.
Yeah.
Let's
basically this paper is saying, hey, nobody's looking at what we need to do. They're all looking at like, hey, this might get rid of these jobs. Great. That's fine. What about figuring out what jobs actually get impacted and figuring out how to deal with that?
Yeah. Smart.
Well, I will say that this subject is very active in our subreddit, and thanks to everybody who submits stories in our subreddit about robots and everything else. We love them. It helps us understand what you want to know more about and what we should talk about on the show. Submit stories and also vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, and facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow is another place you can hang. All right, let's move on to our thing of the day. Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler has a tip about airlines using AI.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. And yet another story in terms of where AI is coming in the travel industry. We're seeing 52% of all airlines are working with some sort of AI. Some are working with it to try and resolve issues more rapidly. Whether you're talking to a chatbot or even better, if you're talking to a person, they can have an AI that is simultaneously parsing this to try and get you answers quicker. I think everybody can be happy with that if it gets us the right answer. They're also looking at suggesting future flights and trips. That can be good if it's used wisely. Obviously, if I'm calling to complain and yell at them, then that might not be the best time. And then they're also integrating with smart devices. So we saw United has come out with the United Skill, so I don't have to talk to someone to check in for a flight or to get flight status. I can do that with my voice with the Amazon Echo or other similar devices. The one that's a little creepy is they talked about AI being able to tap into your Fitbit to detect how agitated you are when you're calling and tailor a response accordingly. I'm not sure I want you to have access to that data. That one seems a bit far-fetched to me. I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
We see your heart rate is 95, ma'am. Please.
You seem upset.
Tell you what, if they're gonna treat me with kid gloves and skip me to the front of the line, then I'm gonna be running stairs.
I have kind of a funny thought. I know we're probably far away from this, but just expanding on our automation talk. How long until the drink cart is automated and it's just a little robot going down the aisle?
I wouldn't be shocked, or I was very bummed to see that Virgin's model of not having a drink cart, but rather just having some kind of ordering system that you could automate would just be a smarter way to do it.
Is Alaska Airlines not continuing that? Because I agree with you. That was way better way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if Alaska is continuing that tradition. I do know that it didn't catch on.
And Virgin even stopped doing it. I would order a drink and then the drink cart would come by and they'd say, "Did you order a drink?" I'm like, okay, that kind of obviates the thing. So let's check in the mailbag, Sarah. What do we get from email?
Let's do it. Matt from Cincinnati emailed us regarding our Friday discussion on regulating electric scooter rentals. Matt says, even though I'm against regulations in general, and I know that this would never happen, I think the most sensible regulations have already been put into place. And those are motorcycle laws. I'm in Ohio. As far as I'm aware, the scooters, if they were introduced here, would fall under the definition of a motorcycle, and as such, would require a motorcycle license to operate. It would also ensure that people are aware of the laws and the customs and general courtesies that go along with riding bikes, and the police could easily enforce rules of the road and prevent them from being used on sidewalks. At least in my part of town, a lot of people are riding scooters on sidewalks, which you're not supposed to do on a bicycle either. In general, Matt says, it's not the world's biggest hurdle to get one, but it certainly wouldn't make the scooter companies happy, as it's another step to use that service, meaning getting that motorcycle license. I
love Matt's self-awareness. He's like, look, I know this is not going to happen. I know the scooter companies wouldn't like it, but we've already got the rules you need. It's called a motorcycle license. It may not ever work, but he's not wrong. Like the complaints that we made are all covered by being aware of that sort of thing. It's one of those, it's all fine until it applies to you. If it applies to the scooter companies, it's going to apply to you if you just go buy a scooter, and then you're going to be like, wait, why do I need a motorcycle license to ride a scooter? That doesn't seem right. And that's where it all falls apart politically. But yeah, I think Matt's right.
Yeah, I would think there's something, I know in San Francisco when we all lived there, there was sort of like mopeds. They work really well for the city and they kind of are motorcycles, but you don't take them on the highway. So there are some sort of different legalities involved there. The scooters probably, and again, not that I want anything bad to happen to anybody ever, but I think when there are enough accidents that put people into sort of this FUD area that we're not quite in yet, because we're all just talking about them being littered on the side of the road, then we'll probably have more conversations about what kind of licenses you need to operate one.
As they come to more cities too. Right now it's considered, that's a San Francisco problem. That's a West Side LA problem, but it's expanded.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks, Matt, for writing in. And also thanks to Justin Robert Young for being with us on Monday, fresh off the Vegas circuit. What's been going on besides not drinking enough water?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Sarah, because I don't know if you guys know, but it is a big week. We're celebrating a birthday for good old America. Yep, the old bag is turning another year old, and we're celebrating here. Not only
we call her now the old bag.
I do.
She looks great for 242. Or
she really does.
Hell yeah! So the Contender, the game of presidential debate. The game that I created with my co-creator John Teasdale, we're doing a big sale for the entire Independence Week. It's so bogus that July 4th is on a Wednesday, so we're extending this thing throughout the entire week. Not only is the base game 500 cards now $17.76 for the week, cheapest price that it's ever been listed at, and our mini expansions. If you want our little 10-card mini expansions, all this week, they're buy one, get one free. So you want to buy, you get 2 for the price of 1, 4 for the price of 2, all that. Do the math, folks, even though Americans were not so good at it. But this is easy. I guarantee you. Just go to the site, thecontender.us, and check out, use code ROCKETS, as in the red glare, ROCKETS at checkout, and you get the 1776 base decks and buy one, get one free mini expansions. Go do it.
Excellent. I'm going to change all the prices to my books to $17.76, the most expensive they've ever been.
Yeah. But, you know, it's patriotic.
Yeah. Probably won't work as well as what Justin's doing, so maybe do what he said. Also, thank you to all of our Patriots, the people who support us on Patreon. We got well more than 10 people than we had last month. So huge thanks to everybody who supports us at patreon.com/DTNS. And if you want to show off your patriotism of being a Patreon, you can get some gear at dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
If you want to give us feedback, have questions, comments, anything, you know what to do. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com is our email address. We're also live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. We would love to have you join us live. If you can, you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with the French Revolution himself, Patrick Beja. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
It's true. They made my birthday dreams come true.
Patrons, patriots. Wonderful. All
You know,
of you. Whether you're automated or not.
Patrick calls them patriotes, or whatever the French way of saying that is on Le Rendezvous Tech. So figured with Independence Day happening, we should steal that.
Absolutely.
Like we did all of our ideas from the French.
Have I mentioned in Good Day Internet pre-show that I haven't really been following the World Cup for no good reason. I actually like the World Cup a lot. I just whatever. Did everybody see the Brazil-Mexico game?
I watched the end of it this morning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw the middle of it because I had to get on a flight, but it seemed like Mexico really kind of had their shot in the first half and just couldn't push through.
I mean, it's Brazil.
I did bring it up because
Mexico,
I actually, I don't have a dog in the fight, but Brazil is always so good.
Perro.
Or yes, perro.
Perro.
I don't really do that right. But yeah, Brazil is always so good. It's like,
well, yeah, and the Belgium-Japan game was crazy because Japan was up 2-0, and then Belgium came back and tied it, and it looked like it was going to go into extra time, and then Belgium scored in stoppage time and won the right to get beaten by Brazil.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, this weekend was murder for the big heavyweights.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, I say that flippantly, but
yeah, Spain out to Russia, of all people.
Yeah.
Tom Merritt last Thursday called it. Should have taken Tom's advice
to Vegas.
It was 3-1 for Russia. I could have made some real money just betting on either hometown cooking or some Putin hijinks. Either way, came in and what's it called?
Croatia
Spain and Portugal.
Lost. Oh yeah.
Well, okay. So here's a question for you, Justin, because I'm a fan of March Madness and being in Vegas, and doing my little thing.
Yep.
Is there a World Cup kind of buzz going on there where there's betting or?
Oh yeah. So
yeah. I mean, I know it's true. It just I guess I've never really noticed it before.
Well,
people like betting.
Obviously, yeah. People number one like betting. People number two come from all over the world to Vegas, and so you will see many for such an international event. You will see many international flavors represented. I know it was certainly a highly advertised thing. That Mexico-Brazil game specifically, they got as much advertising as you were going to ever see for an event happening at 6:00 on a Monday morning in Vegas for that game. So I do know through conversations with sources within the professional Vegas gambling ecosystem that the Vegas is very happy today because the two teams that they really would have felt the pain if they would have gone through to the end of the tournament were Portugal and Mexico, meaning that a lot of people bet Portugal and Mexico. They apparently could not set the line high enough for Mexico. The Mexican people just wanted,
Ow.
they wanted money on that, and Brazil wins. So Vegas wins, and they move on.
What are we calling this, Roger?
There's Stick It to the Man, comma robot. And there's also, I got 500 picks, but CC ain't one. Beautiful.
That's good, but
Yeah. Automation status, it's complicated. I don't know, nothing.
that's good.
I want to do something with automation and
Let's see.
yeah,
Automation for the people.
I like that one.
yeah.
Like
Sure.
that's like a REM thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Ah, crap.
What happened? Was it already used?
Every once in a while, if I try to edit too many ID3 tags in Audacity, it crashes, and then I have to redo all of them.
See, I use ID3 editor.
No, I use ID3 editor too, but when I'm saving it from Audacity, it doesn't make sense to not put the proper ID3 tags in there
But if you're
because I'm there. It's faster.
except that it crashes.
Well, it usually doesn't.
Right.
Because usually
works
I'm
back
not
nicely.
changing the title 3 times. Usually I'm just changing it once.
Yeah. No,
But
I
when
know
I'm-
you've mentioned that where you're like, like save certain things where I'm like, I actually type everything out in ID3 editor every time. It would be nice for it to save a few things, but
What are you going to do? As they say in Liverpool, what are you going to do?
did they say that there?
Well, I don't know. My Liverpudlian next door neighbor says it a lot.
Lilliputian.
What are you
I
gonna do?
assume.
You know what's funny? So
Lilliputian.
a
Small.
a friend of mine who I would say, I don't know, we grew up in different societies. I don't know. Grew up differently.
From different worlds.
We're from different worlds. Yeah. I said
different
something.
world than where
He
you come
said something the other day, and I said, "I'll say," and he's like,
You'll
"You'll say what?"
I'm
like, No, it's like just an expression. Like I'm agreeing with you. And he was
kind of
like,
old-fashioned, I guess.
I say it all the time. I write it like it. I was like, "You're kidding me? You never heard that before?" And he was like, "No, I like it though. I like it. It's like it's you're giving it emphasis." And I said it again, and he was like, there's that phrase again. I'll say.
Well, I never. That's what you should say next time.
Well, I'll be.
And he'll be like, never what?
Yeah.
Be what?
It's just funny. Certain things where I'm like, I guess that is kind of weird. I never really thought about it. I thought everybody knew that, but varieties
It's
is
like a cat
nice.
in a hamper. I just made that one up. That's not a real thing.
Yeah, what does that mean? When a cat's in a hamper, it means they're
And
comfortable
how?
and
That's what we do
probably
it. You bark.
Like a
and
cat,
how.
like a cat in the bag.
Like a pig in a poke.
Bird in the bush, two in the
Doing your
Two
Yeah.
birds in the bush
Two-
is
two-
worth
two in the
chicken.
hamper.
Yeah.
Why? How the birds get in the hamper? I have no idea.
I honestly, I'm like, maybe I sound like an old person, but I say that all the time. I'll say,
It doesn't sound that weird to me, but I guess it's kind of old-fashioned.
Do you
Yeah.
say?
It
Do
does
you
strike me
say?
as something I would hear in a 50s movie, but I think I say it too.
right. That's so funny.
Well,
It's just
Aces.
funny when someone points something like that out. Like, what's that? What is that? What's that weird
get that with
expression that you're
Eileen.
using?
I get that with Eileen sometimes, especially if I use something that's very Midwestern. She'll be like, I don't know what that means.
Like, what's an example?
I can only think of really extreme examples, but sometimes it happens with. The one, I don't want to embarrass her too much, but the one she always gets wrong is modus operandi.
Oh,
that classic Midwest.
I'm like, I don't
Midwestern
really
one.
know
See, I
that
can't
one
think-
either.
So the Midwestern one I could think of is can't dance, too wet to plow, which no one says,
No.
even in the Midwest anymore.
never,
so that's
never
too
once said
extreme.
that. Yeah.
I don't know. Can't think of a
oh.
good one. It's my MO.
There are
Just
definitely some Midwestern phrases that I know enough people from the Midwest that I'm not like, what are you saying? But I'm like, oh, you're like that's a Chicago thing, or
My
whatever.
car's roached.
Right. Or calling a guy. Where to me, I'm like, that's kind of like, you don't really call somebody guy. Yeah, but
Wait, you know, like they're like, hey, watch
Hey,
it.
guy.
like, hey guy. Yeah, watch it, guy.
Hey,
Like
buddy.
to me,
Hey,
I'm like,
pal.
yeah, it's like buddy or bro or
A
something.
friend.
Yeah.
I'm not your friend.
Mister.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I've only noticed this from the people of Greater Chicagoland saying, "Hey guy," and it not being like sort of kind
You
of
are
rude.
really Midwestern.
Yeah, but what would you say?
Right.
What would be
Tom's
the,
like, that's not Midwestern.
what would be the term you would use otherwise if it's not like, hey buddy, like hey dude, hey guy, hey man?
Hey, yeah.
Hey, pal. Hey, chief. Hey,
Champ.
boss.
Yeah. Chief.
I mean, I would use a
don't
different
think I was
term.
ever saying-
I don't think
Hey,
I could say
chief.
it.
Watch yourself.
So
And Justin probably has some South Florida versions of this as well.
yeah, I don't know what, because South Florida is a weird thing. Unless you're doing Spanish stuff, like then in general, South Florida is just such a hodgepodge that
The way you said that made it sound like a euphemism for something.
Unless you're doing Spanish.
Unless you're doing Spanish.
Yeah, those two. They're always out doing Spanish stuff.
like
Justin, did you see the video of the guy who was on the hood of the car?
oh yeah,
Yeah. And the way it was presented,
Spanish
I don't remember where I saw it. It was probably on Instagram, but the way it was presented is Florida.
I mean, look,
only in Florida.
it's a wacky place with wacky people, and
It's
I
so
love it.
great.
I love it dearly.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that 90% of the slang from South Florida is just slang from other places because so many people from South Florida are
From other places.
I was gonna move the conversation to the sports story of the hour. LeBron.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Eileen shrieked.
She
grew up
It was
a
so
Lakers
funny.
fan,
I got
yeah.
so many texts from people yesterday, even though it's like, I'm not a Laker fan. I'm a Warrior fan. So, arguably not a LeBron fan. And it's just like, what are you going to do? I'm like, nothing.
I'm just very excited for all of those games in division, which I think it's 6 or 8 games in division between those two teams.
Uh-huh.
It will all exclusively be watched in person by millionaires. There will be no way that anybody who
You mean the Warriors and the Lakers?
Yeah.
If the Warriors didn't already have enough celebrities, and really at this point, the Lakers rather, and the Warriors as well, it's like that's the game to be courtside at.
Well, the Lakers have been losing mind share here to the Clippers, much to the Laker fans' chagrin. They don't want, my wife included, don't want to admit it, but people have been sort of like, hey, the Clippers are pretty good. Steve Ballmer's doing a good job with them.
Well,
so
but the Lakers
getting
are,
LeBron
the Lakers
just
didn't
swings that right back.
Yeah. The Lakers were, young team this year. And again, I'm not a fan, but I'm not like a Laker hater either. I don't really care either way once Kobe was gone.
Yeah.
But the team already had quite a bit of promise, but like LeBron coming to the team just screws all of that. It's just him and like who can support him if he doesn't get injured.
Yeah, which he never does. He's not human.
He will eventually. He's, what is he? 33, 34? I mean, people
never misses a game ever.
But he will eventually. He's not a robot.
I mean, sure. Like, yes, I understand, like that economic proposal. I understand where you're coming from, but I've yet to see any kind of tangible evidence.
This is just me being like, he's a superhuman, might be a robot. If he was actually a normal human, he would get hurt eventually, but he might not.
But he might not
just play forever and just get better.
Well, the rumor is that, and he signed a longer contract, but the rumor is that he wants to play until he can play with his son. And his son is now just entering high school. There is a rumor that, or now currently, this is something we're going to be discussing, to eliminate the one and done rule, meaning kids could come right out of high school like LeBron did, and that it would be a LeBron wants to play either in LA with his son or would go to whatever team drafted his son. He wants to play with his son.
I could see that. That would be epic in a weird way. But I don't know. I mean, is his son good enough to be drafted out of high school?
No, it's yeah. He's apparently really good.
Oh, well, how about that?
Yeah, but
I was also really good at basketball in high school and had an opportunity to be drafted, but I just decided to go to college instead.
Well, there's news and sports. We'll be back with weather for all of your local stations here on the Good Day Internet Radio Network.
Good day.